Mark Locke, and I'm the exhibit designer for Tutankhamun and the Golden Age of the Pharaohs. And my job is to work with putting all these wonderful pieces together, these pieces of history. The room we're in, they have the objects from Tutankhamun's tomb. And you really feel like maybe you're back in ancient Egypt and you understand what it was like for this 9-year-old boy to become a king. Now this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a throne or a small chair for Tutankhamun. He probably used it before he became king. Remember, he became king at 9 years old, so maybe 6 years old when he was still the prince. He sat in this very chair as the prince, a prince of Egypt, soon to become king. It's a small game. It's maybe the version of 3,000 years ago of a Game Boy or Xbox or something like that. The pieces on top, they moved around those little squares, and when he was done playing, he'd take those little pieces and put them in the drawer, flip it over, and there was another game to play. You see, and this was a box, the lid came off, and ceremonial items were stored inside, but this was also put inside the tomb. Remember, the things inside the tomb with the king were meant to be with him in the afterlife, so even though he was no longer living on this earth, he would travel into another place, the afterlife, what we call heaven today.
I'm John Taylor. I'm curator at the British Museum in the Egyptian department. We've been helping to put together a special display of photographs and film footage about Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, who discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun. My favourite piece is the gilded coffin of Tutankhamun's great-grandmother, which is a really spectacular object, and when you walk into the room, it's there in the centre, shining with gold, completely covered with gold. Very, very dramatic thing. So you have this human form in shining gold, very impressive indeed. Ancient Egyptian life has a lot of relevance for us today. So many of the things that we have in the modern world came from Egypt. Writing is a very good example. The Egyptians were right there at the beginning of the development of writing. A lot of the skills that they developed in building and sculpture and craftsmanship, those are things that were passed on down to us in the modern world today.
Now, the ancient Egyptians believed that if your name lived on throughout history, meaning after you died, if people kept talking about you, you would have eternal life. You would keep living. Now, if that's true, I think Tutankhamun's doing quite well because we're still talking about him today.